loss standpoint. So what we want to be shooting for is eating 2 to 3 cups of veggies per meal and about 6 to 9 cups of vegetables per day, kind of depending on how many meals we're having, 3 to 4 meals per day. But if we're having 4 meals per day and you're having 2 cups of veggies per meal, that's 8 cups of veggies, which for most of us is really a lot of vegetables. So that likely is going to be a big change for you and something that you're going to have to gradually start to adjust to. So in order to determine how much that is, we know that a serving is about a fist-sized portion or a cup. So 1 cup equals 1 serving, and that's usually of a raw vegetable. So let's say broccoli, for the sake of the picture, excuse me, so we do a raw cup of broccoli equals 1 serving, so we'd have 2 cups of raw broccoli, or let's say at a given meal, maybe a cup of broccoli and a cup of carrots, baby carrots, something like that. Now, if we're cooking the vegetable, okay, typically the volume of the veggie will reduce, so it'll become smaller in size. And that's important to factor in. That means that we don't necessarily need a whole cup of cooked. For instance, if you're going to cook spinach, as an example, well, obviously a cup of raw spinach leaves cooks down to virtually nothing, maybe a 1/4 cup of cooked. So factor that in, and I don't really have set portion control measures for cooked and uncooked, but just keep in mind sort of a fist-sized portion, multiple fist-sized portions per meal. And I want you to just kind of think about 2 to 3 cups per meal. And, so if we're talking about a spinach, maybe it's a 1/2 cup. I would say a 1/2 cup cooked would be equivalent to about a cup of raw. And if we're talking about leafy greens, well, then more like 2 cups of leafy greens would be more equivalent to a 1 serving size, because obviously leafy greens take up a lot of space. So just keep that in mind. If you're having a big green salad, well, you're going to want more than 2 to 3 cups. If you're having something that cooks down significantly, you don't need as much to get as much benefit. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And with that said, is because you're consuming more veggies, there's a higher likelihood that you could experience some gastrointestinal discomfort, in which case the raw veggies would not be the best choice, and you'd want to make sure you're cooking your vegetables a little bit more. And the more you cook them, especially for the more cruciferous vegetables like the broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, the easier they're going to be to digest. So keep that in mind. As if you're not used to consuming a lot of vegetables, then I suggest you start increasing your veggie intake from more cooked veggies than raw. Okay, so what vegetables are acceptable? Well, really any vegetables are fine. There's a whole extensive list I'll include in this email with this video. And so all different colors, we like to say all the colors of the rainbows in terms of veggies. So that's just fine. Why so many vegetables? Well, research is very clear in showing that eating more fruits and vegetables throughout the day is correlated to a reduced risk of death from all-cause mortality. That means that the more vegetables and fruits that people eat, the less likely they are to die, basically. And it's specifically of cancer and heart disease and cardiovascular-related diseases, so cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and then obesity. So we know it's beneficial from a health standpoint just to get more fruits and veggies in, and that's because vegetables are packed with things called phytochemicals, basically nutrient-dense chemicals, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and most importantly for fat loss is because they are lower in calories. And so how are they lower in calories and why is that beneficial? Well, vegetables are the least caloric dense food, period. So per volume size, if we take vegetables and compare them to any other food, they have the least amount of calories because they contain a lot of water and they contain a lot of indigestible carbohydrates, called fiber. And we all know fiber is good for us. Well, this is one of the reasons why, is because fiber in veggies, as an example, adds a lot of volume to your plate and then in your stomach. So you can see from the picture kind of a good example of how vegetables take up a lot of space. And that's a good thing for helping to create feelings of fullness in our stomach, because they help activate the stretch receptors. So the more volume we put into our stomach, the more it activates the stretch receptors and tells the brain, hey, I've had enough food. I'm good. I don't need to have any more cravings. I can get feelings of fullness. I'm good to go. And like I said, vegetables have the least amount of calories. So we're filling ourselves up with virtually, potentially far fewer calories than from a fat or a protein. And that's very important to keep in mind. And that's why we want a lot of vegetables in our meals. Well, what about fruit? Fruit is also relatively low in calories and in energy density compared to other foods. But I don't want to replace your vegetables with fruit. I would like to add fruit, certainly keeping in mind that you're doing more vegetables than fruit. So having 1 to 2 pieces of fruit per day, I think, is perfectly acceptable. And a good time to have those would be as a replacement as for a dessert or for some other more processed food. An example of, I think, when a good time to have fruit in is certainly around your workouts, and we'll get more down the road into kind of more strategic carbohydrate timing, but I think breakfast is a great example of a time when it's hard for people to get in enough vegetables. And just kind of the logistics of it, we wake up, we need to get out of the house relatively quickly. Sometimes cooking is potentially difficult, and so an example would be having a cup of fruit in addition to a cup of veggies, instead of having 2 cups of veggies. Or let's say you have a veggie omelet and then a cup of fruit on the side, as an example. I think would be a good example of how to get in some fruit and where it would belong. And then, as I said, maybe having fruit as a dessert in place of ice cream or a cookie or something like that. So let's get into some useful tips, and then you'll be on your way. So how do we eat more veggies throughout the day? Well, you have to buy more veggies. So I want you to step outside the comfort zone and start to choose some veggies that, well, you first and foremost, choose vegetables that you're comfortable eating, and get comfortable with those. Get comfortable with your cooking methods. How are you including them? And make sure you're just getting them in. Second to that, let's step outside the box and start to include some veggies that you may not have experience with or may not be as comfortable with. And then once you're buying those, you need to prep those. So get home from the grocery store, prep those accordingly. So whether you chop them and put them into containers, make sure you're storing them within eyesight of the fridge. It's pretty common for us to buy fruits and veggies at the store, throw them in the drawers of the fridge, and totally forget about them until it's too late. And I find that one of the best tricks for making sure you're consuming enough fruits and veggies is having them visible. So put them on the top shelf of the fridge and make sure they're prepped and ready to go. Get home, wash them, put them in containers so you can grab and go. That's going to really work the best for you. Veggie eating tip number 2 is including those veggies at breakfast. A really easy way to include vegetables is just by mixing them up with some eggs in the morning. And if you have those in a container, like let's say you have some cherry tomatoes and peppers and green onion and mushrooms and let's say asparagus, all chopped up in a container, you can just throw those in a frying pan with a little coconut oil. Heat those up, throw some eggs in there, and you've got a breakfast ready to roll in under 5 minutes. And that is an easy and healthy way to get those veggies in for breakfast. Okay, another trick would be to add veggies to your smoothies. And what you can really do is you can do any kind of green veggie. I like to do kale and spinach. Actually, you can do kale and spinach. Personally, I hate kale, but that's just me. I love spinach. I love dandelion greens. They are excellent for improving our body's ability to detoxify, so they're very good for the liver. I love parsley and cilantro. They add a fantastic flavor to smoothies. And so you can throw those in a smoothie. I put a little formula here for your benefit, and you can certainly use that. But, just simply doing frozen fruit, a good handful of a green vegetable, some protein powder, and some water or like coconut water would work out great. Plain and simple. It's always best to keep it easy. So with that said, you're off and running. Get those 2 to 3 cups of veggies into each and every meal as much as possible. They're going to add a ton of fiber, which is going to really help boost fat loss. Trust me on this. You're going to be amazed at what it does, how it helps you feel, your feelings of fullness throughout the day, in between meals, helping to really curb those feelings of hunger that you've really started to identify with, and to help you really manage your calories more effectively. So go ahead and add that to your habit list, and I can't wait to hear how you respond. I'll talk to you soon.